What's up, everybody? You are now tuned into the Burnout Podcast up here at S.STREET Media. I am your host, Rebecca Shelby, aka the Hot Takes Hottie, aka Miscontextuality, because what is life without context? AKA I got my foot in these bitches next, but you already knew that though. AKA the great debater, or like my good friend EJ likes to say, the great hater. AKA the professional shit talker. And aka the one and the only poppin' provocateur. Let's get it. By the song that you guys just heard, you should already be able to tell what this podcast is gonna be about. Because y'all know I do not play music like this. I actually make fun of early 80s rap because it is just something you have to laugh at. But in this instance, this song, The Message, is going to be about it's gonna be about a grander thing we're gonna get into today, and that thing is the secret meeting that destroyed hip-hop and changed a generation forever. So if you guys have not even heard of that, you don't even know what that is. Rebecca, what? We know you into conspiracy theories. But we what? The secret meeting? This just sounds fake. But we gonna get into some things. Now, so let me get into the origins of what this even is about. So I want to say during the pandemic, I was chilling with my cousin and she had told me about this article that her professor had gave her that they had to talk about in class, called what I just said, the secret meeting that destroyed hip-hop and changed the generation. So this secret meeting basically was a letter sent out from an email address under the name John Smith. I know, generic as hell. And basically in this letter, this man who basically claims that he was a huge decision maker in the 80s and 90s for these record labels. And I'm gonna give y'all some context because I don't call myself miscontextuality for no reason, but just bear with me. He basically is this big decision maker in the 80s and 90s, and he gets invited to this super top secret meeting. And I honestly feel the name of this whole conspiracy kind of cheapens what it is, because when you hear secret meeting, it kind of gives this, mystical vibe to it, and this is very much something that could have happened. So let me get into that. So he says that he's a decision maker. He gets invited to this top secret meeting, which is not rare in the music industry or any industry at all. There are all meetings that we cannot attend. For fuck's sake, if you work at fucking Walmart, there is a meeting that your supervisors are going to that you are not invited to. So in that sense, it is secret. If you don't know about it and you were not invited, you have no. But that's not here what we're here to argue. So, in this conspiracy, he basically talks about a meeting in 1991. That year is very important, so just keep that in the back of your mind. In 1991, where major record label executives were told to promote gangster rap music to the mainstream so that they could help create criminals to incarcerate so that they could make more money with the privately owned prisons that these record labels are invested into. So a lot of you guys might be thinking, what does privately owned prisons have to actually do with the music industry, with gangsta rap? I'm about to tell y'all. So while doing some snooping on the internet, I had came across this article about who is investing into prisons and basically what being a shareholder in a private prison is what that entails and things of that nature. So I'm gonna read an excerpt of that for you guys right now. So it says, right now there are 3 companies: Warner Records, Universal Music Group, and Sony Music Group, controlling 90% of the decisions and depictions of hip hop. At the same time, 2 companies, Core Civic, formerly known as CAA, Corrections Corporation of America, and the Geo Group, own all of the private prison beds in the USA. What connects these 2 industries together? Vanguard and BlackRock are the largest shareholders in both media and prisons. So you guys probably like, okay, Rebecca, you basically just said a whole bunch of nothing. Now it sounds like you read off Google. What the fuck does anything have to do with anything? So I'm going to read the last sentence to you guys. What connects these 2 industries together? Vanguard and BlackRock, which are the largest shareholders in both media and prisons. Vanguard. That might be a very familiar sounding name, and that's because it is. We watch their music video award every single year, the VMAs. Most importantly, the Michael Jackson Vanguard Music Video Award. I know you guys have heard of that award because it's the most honorary award you could receive at the VMAs. So that just shows you the connection to what I'm sorry guys, I have like a slur, you guys know this. BlackRock and Vanguard, that is what ties these 2 industries together. I'm actually going to play a video for you guys that basically breaks down everything that I said in much simpler terms. So just give me a second, guys. Boom.
Starting to get a little fishy. The largest holder in Core Civic, formerly Corrections Corp of America, is Vanguard Group Incorporated. Vanguard is the #1 largest holder in both Viacom and Time Warner. Vanguard is also the largest holder in the GEO Group, the 2nd largest owner of private prisons in the US. The overlap in private prison / mass media ownership is disturbing. Let's make this clear. The people who own the media are the same people who own private prisons. The exact same people.
So much. Now that actually was a video for Hip Hop for Change, which is actually an amazing organization, so you guys should definitely check them out at the end of this video, of course. Back to what I was saying. Now back to this secret meeting. So I'm linking the evidence of what you guys are about to hear, which is very disturbing, to what we're going to be talking about today. So just stick with me. Now I'm going to go back to... So in this letter, I'm not going to read the entire letter. One, because as you guys could tell, I don't like fucking reading. But besides that, it's really long and you can find it online. Literally all you have to put in is the secret meeting that destroyed hip hop. But okay, so I am going to jump down a couple sections. There's like a big ass ad. I gotta wait for it to pop down. Oh my god, guys, I hate this. Okay, so it reads, at this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable at the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in very profitable industries, which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement. He explained that these companies we work for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons. That in our position of influence, the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. I remember many of us in the group immediately looking at each other in confusion. At this time, I didn't know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with us. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more money. the more money the government would pay to these prisons. It was made clear that since prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. This is important. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple of people were asked what this had to do with us. At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened the meeting took the floor again to answer our questions, and he told us since our employers have become silent investors, that is very important to note, guys, in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Our jobs would be to help make this happen by marketing music which promotes criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming increasingly profitable, a profitable market for our companies. As employees, we'd also be able to buy personal stocks in these prisons. Immediately, silence came over this room. And then the rest basically talks about how some people left in white outrage, some people stayed. Ultimately, it took him for a long white time to calm himself down based off of the things that he heard, and that he wished that he had did something and blah, blah, blah. You guys know, blow the whistle, whoop, whoop. Now, being that I just read all of that to you guys, and I just explained to you guys how the music industry and privately owned prisons are connected, I wanted to go deeper into how this actually changed the face of hip hop. So, in 1991, Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana was the biggest song. Like, that is not a lie. That is not a opinion. That is like, that was the number one song in the world. So, oh, no. Actually, I misspoke. In 1990. So, in 1990, the tone was pretty much clearly set that alternative rock was the music of the youth. Alternative rock was America's music. We loved it, right? Well, not we, but you guys know the we I'm talking about. So knowing that, to then know that in 1991, Death Row Records, whose parent company was Sony Music Group, which also owns 90% of hip hop's depictions, to know that Death Row Records came about during, like, literally right after this, kind of seems strange. Why would a giant company like Sony back rap who was just in its beginnings of becoming mainstream? Whew, gotta take a sip of water, y'all, because I'm talking about a lot of shit right now. So, just with that context alone, to know that like, this is not far-fetched, like, that this was strategic, because they didn't choose rock and roll, and it's very easy to influence the youth with something like rock and roll if you wanted to get them to do criminal shit, because rock and roll is inherently dark. They chose hip-hop explicitly, and I think you guys know why. So let's keep going. So we know that we know that gangster rap is a direct expression of the injustices in this country from the war on drugs and Reaganomics. If you guys do not know what Reaganomics is, look it up. Like, I've been breaking down a lot of shit to y'all in the first couple minutes, so I think I get that one. So Ice-T's 6 a.m. is a perfect example of that, being that 6 a.m. is arguably, notice I said arguably, the first gangsta rap song. 6 a.m. basically is a ballad where Ice-T is explaining all of the injustices that are going on with the police reform that was happening at that time. Now, how does that even connect to what I'm talking about, Ronald Reagan and police reform? So, during this time when gangster rap was starting to come out, so this is when NWA and the Ice-T's, really just those two. I don't even have to say put an S at the end of that, because NWA and Ice-T are the Mount Rushmore of what gangster rap is. During this time, Reagan explicitly changed laws around sentencing for drug-related crimes, like hiking up mandatory minimums. He and his administration launched the Just Say No to Drugs campaign, and also enacted the No Knock warrant, which basically wreaked havoc on our communities. Like, just listen to what I said, no knock, which basically means that if they suspect that you in there cooking crack or doing drugs or whatever the fuck, they can throw you in jail. This was a point of time where people who were drug addicts were thrown in jail for being high. So I just want to express to you guys, like, the fucking war on Black America, because it wasn't until we seen young white kids in the suburbs being addicted to oxys and Percocets and things like that, and ODing and being addicted to heroin, where drug addiction started being treated more like a mental illness than a crime. So during this time where we hear like songs like Fuck the Police and 6 a.m., these were responses to what Ronald Reagan was doing, not the other way around. History likes to make it seem as if gangster rap is a justification to the injustices that were happening in the Black community at the time. But this is not facts. These were responses to laws that were specifically being put in place to disenfranchise Black people. This is also when the word like crack baby was put into the American lexicon. This is also around the time my nigga is saying the N-word got very popular as well. So none of these things are coincidental. These are all by design. So moving on, during this time, Ronald Reagan was instituting all of these laws and policies to basically lock Black people up for being on the drugs he brought into this country. So originally the tone around gangster rap was very much, this is horrible. We need to get these predators. This is when the word predator in reference to Black people also became popular. We need to get these predators off the street. We need to lock them up. We need to do everything possible to make sure that we get these guys off the streets, right? And during that time, we start to see basically even people in our own community, our own Black people, sitting here saying that gangster rap is ruining the community, gangster rap is poisoning the minds of the youth, and we need to get this off the airways. And there were radio stations refusing, Black and white, refusing to play gangster rap at this time. Keep in mind, this time I'm talking about is before 1991. This is before 1991. So this is like 1987, 1988. You guys are probably like, Rebecca, you weren't even born back then, so how could you even speak this confidently? But I keep telling y'all on here, Google is a god. Anyway, so with that little bit of context to what was going on at that time, the general opinion toward gangster rap music was inherently negative, and that this was going to be something that made younger Black children in turn act profusely. The song that I played in the beginning is called The Message. I was supposed to say The Warning. It's called The Message. The reason why this song, and we've all heard it's like a jungle sometimes. I keep on going under. Like, we've all heard this song before, and I didn't realize till doing this research that he is basically telling the government. Like, he not telling the nigga in the street, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. He's telling the government, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Like, It's people addicted to drugs out here. Like in the beginning of the song, he's talking about living in a roach infested apartment. You don't get those vibes when you're a kid and you just bounce into this song like, oh, I just like the beat. But you don't get these vibes. So this message essentially was him letting the government know, like, y'all keep treating black people like this. Eventually, it might not be me. It might be my sons and them. It might be my grandkids. But eventually, one of these generations is going to go crazy. They're going to lose their mind and they're going to bulk up against the system. And that is where the mainstream gangster rap, like the Snoop Dogg's and the Tupacs, are coming from. This is the energy that they're listening to and putting back into their music. Like, yeah, this nigga was close to the edge. Well, I'm on it already and I'm ready, motherfucker. Like, I'm with it. Like, we with it. We ready. So for this music that was inherently seen in the white mainstream's eyes as proof that black people are innately savage and just horrible, wretched people, how does it switch just within essentially 5 years, not even an entire decade? How does this idea switch essentially in 5 years to this is what we need to see? Like, this is what we need to push. This is what we need to put out into the mainstream. Now, I will say supply and demand and consumers definitely play a part in this, because they will not put out what the consumers don't want to hear. But the fact that the labels, even though Ice Cube was selling out millions, actively suppressed his radio plays, basically being able allowed at award shows, allowed at different media events and stuff like that, that would elevate his career, that essentially he was at a status to be at. Because you don't sell, like, NWA, their first album basically didn't get any radio play except for like underground like stations and stuff like that. But for the most part, for the mainstream, no one was playing that shit. Not because it was trash and not because the hood didn't love it, because the mainstream did not agree with the sentiments that they were speaking about. So in this, it's kind of just like, how in the next 5 years do y'all just change y'all mind? Like, how do y'all just feel like I don't know if you guys know this, but the reason why we have the advisory sticker is because of Ice-T. Ice-T literally went to court to fight for his freedom of speech to talk about the gangster lifestyle. Now, another part of another element of this I want to bring into is connecting it back to this modern day, connecting it back to what we have going on right now. Because the second part of this conspiracy is that destroyed a generation. What generation did this destroy? Ours. So I want to connect it kind of into what we see going on right now. But before I do that, I want to provide to you guys a little bit of data from this documentary that I watched. And basically they were talking about NWA and how the violence in their music. I've been talking so much. I'm not putting myself to sleep. It's just I've been talking so much, like my mouth needed a break. But basically how their music wasn't inherently liberating. It just was reporting on the times that the children or the teens of that generation had to live through, which I agree with. I'm not saying that that is wrong, but what I will say is I find it interesting that during that time, gangster rappers were not actual gangsters. Tupac was not a real gangster. Ice-T was not a real gangster. Nobody in NWA was a real gangster. Come on now. Y'all think niggas with Jerry curls really are, come on now. It's not Compton. But, Yeah, like Snoop Dogg was not a real gangster, even though he killed somebody. Like, none of these dudes were inherently street dudes. They were just men who grew up in the streets and probably was fly, had a lot of street cred. Like, oh, that's that little nigga. Like, you know, oh, that's that little nigga Day Day. That's a little nigga Day Day. Like, shit like that. So, I'm pointing that out because to see the shift in today where a lot of, not all of, but a lot of our generation's rappers really are street niggas. Like King Von was the grandson. That's why his nickname was Grandson. King Von was the grandson of the guy who invented BD. So, like, literally hood royalty. Little Durk is a real fucking gangster. Like, Little Durk has a real life criminal record that you can pull up. Like, that aside, a lot of our rappers, like the Baby, like the list could go on and on and on. Point being, a lot of our rappers are real street people, and I wonder what made the industry even take that shift. So, in this video, basically this guy documents how many times NWA has talked about inciting violence against another black person versus the cops in their second album, which is the album of the famous banger Fuck the Police. And yeah, I just want you guys to hear that data because it shocked me, and I think it's gonna fucking shock you too after you hear it. So let me click play.
And or physically violent towards African Americans. On NWA's first album, there were
in 5 seconds
is gonna skip in a few seconds. Let's go.
African Americans. On NWA's fourth album, there were 38 instances of violence by NWA members against African Americans. Not only was there an increase in violence against African Americans by NWA members, there was also an increase in murders of African Americans by NWA members. There was one murder of an African American by NWA on their first album. NWA committed 6 murders of African Americans on their second album. NWA committed 3 murders of African Americans on their EP. NWA committed 21 murders of African Americans on their fourth album. When we calculate the per minute average for murder of African Americans by NWA members, we find the following. Album 1, murder about once every 50 minutes. Album 2, murder about once every 10 minutes. Album 3, murder about once every 8 minutes. Album 4, murder about once every 2.5 minutes. These statistics clearly show that NWA's body of work increasingly promoted the murder of African American males and females.
The critical question that we should ask is, did NWA actually promote murder of African American males and females? Or was NWA merely reporting on what they saw in their environment?
And this group that emerges from this organic sense of community in Southern California, which was Watts, which was South Central, which was...
And he goes on, I have to find it, you guys. He goes on to actually talk a little bit more. It was like a crazy ratio in there.
However, I would ask the critical question, is reporting on murder that is taking place in your environment the same as portraying yourself as the murderer in your environment? Another way of looking at this is to consider mass media news reporting. When a reporter reports on an incident of domestic violence, does the reporter say,
"An incident of domestic violence took place today between an African American man and woman. Prior to the incident, the man is said to have been drinking Bacardi rum. The argument between the man and woman quickly escalated into physical violence as the man grabbed the woman by her hair and slapped her across the face."
Or does the reporter say,
"Left to get my girl to rock that body. Before I left, I hit the Bacardi. Went to her house to get her out of the pad. Dumb hoe said something that made me mad. She said something that I couldn't believe, so I grabbed the stupid bitch by her nappy ass wig. She started talking shit. Wouldn't you know, reach back like a pimp, slap the hoe."
The point is this. NWA did not simply report on the negativity that they saw in their environment. They actually exploited the negativity that they saw in their environment by assuming the identity of the perpetrators of that negativity. They did not simply report on the abuse of women. They became the...
And then I'm kind of upset because I can't even fucking find it. It was like a crazy ass ratio. But basically, I wrote it down, so I have it here for you guys. Basically, he took, you see how he broke down the actual, when he was saying that NWA murdered per album, he wasn't talking about them actually going out and committing physical crimes. He's talking about the lyrics in their songs. So judging by the lyrics of their songs, they talked about murder this many times per minute, just to give a little bit of clarification on that. There's another ratio he gave, basically like there's this perception that NWA was so liberating, talking against the police, and he was like, when you look at the second album that Fuck the Police was actually on, NWA talked about killing black people to police officers to a 46-to-1 ratio, which means the only time they talked about killing a police officer was one time in Fuck the Police to the 46 times they talked about killing other black men. And in this documentary, he goes down to talk about repetition, which is why he has this actual analytic data. And this is a black man, just for clarity, so people are like, oh, white people hating on the culture, This is actually a black man, and everyone in this documentary is black. But he goes on to talk about the power of repetition, because when you listen to a song, you don't listen to a song one time. So in one song, someone is talking about killing another black person, let's say 20 different ways, and you listen to that song 5 times, 100 times already, you have memorized 20 different ways to kill another black person if they try you, if they test your gangster, if they do something to you. So I just found that really not even interesting in itself, just like, wow, like this is the music that we consume, because this is data we can pull for Welcome to the O. This is data that we can pull for Back in Blood. Like if I sat down right now and did a lyrical breakdown of Back in Blood, I'm pretty sure I can find over 10 instances where Pusha T is talking about killing another black man. And that's not to knock it, it's just to show the influence from NWA gangster rap all the way down to drill rap. Because the only real difference between drill rap and gangster rap is the beats. Like that, like that's really it. Like that's the only difference. It's still the same themes, the same stuff. Here at S.STREET Media, we had an amazing Black history event last year. And one of the poets was saying in every single rap song, you could hear my bitch, my jewels, my car. And that is so, like, there's no other statement that's untrue than a depiction of hip-hop. And hip-hop is not all bad. It's not. It is not all bad. But when you actually sit down and think about the shift and how the media pushes these gangsta artists, there was no reason for King Von or Quando Rondo, for that matter, to be signed, let alone to the same umbrella label. Because the thing is, even though King Von was independent and owned 100% of his masters, and I will always scream that to the rooftops because that is very important, he had a distribution deal with the same people who signed Quando Rondo. And if you guys think that this is by accident, it's not. When you guys seen, you all remember 2012, 2013, 2014, even up into 2015, 2016, and even now, Drill TV covering active beef that these rappers have with each other. How many people did we see in the drill scene die in 2013? And then people love to act like, and this is no disrespect to the dead, people love to act like hip-hop, that hip-hop's biggest atrocity was the deaths of Tupac and Biggie, because they could have been so unavoidable. But we don't spend enough time how media outlets actively glorified the Chicago drill rap scene and profited off of the like Black TV made a lot of money covering what was going on in Chicago at that time. And like it gets to a certain point, yes, if the consumer wants to hear it at a certain point, what could we do? But as consumers, we also have to get to a point where we're like, hold on, what's going on? Why are we like, do you guys really think you're in control of what you listen to and what you see? Because you're not. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, some of you are, but you're not. The media tells you who's hot. The media tells you who's it. Why do you think Warner Brothers, the media company, also has a record label? Because Warner Brothers, if I'm signed to Warner Bros. And they want me to be hot for 2021, guess what? They can make me hot for 2021, because not only do they own this label, but they own the media. So for me, it's not far-fetched that this secret meeting actually happened, because we see the after effects. Like 1/3 of the prison industry in America is filled with Black people, and we're only 13% of the population. Like, just let those numbers sink in for you. I remember in 2017, I read an article called The Missing Black Men. And basically, it wasn't about Black men who had been abducted or Black men who just, died and there were no trace of them or their bodies were never found. No, these were not missing Black men like that. These were missing Black men out of the community that could be contributing, but because they are locked up in jail on petty crimes. Like, we're not talking about, because a lot of times when we talk about Black men or even Black women, because we don't talk enough about how Black women are disproportionately arrested as well to their white and Hispanic counterparts, because color and how dark you are definitely does come into play. But more importantly, every time we talk about Black people being in jail, but what did he do? Bro, there are Black people who are fucking in jail for nothing. There are Black people in jail for no reason. There are Black people in jail for the reason of selling a nickel bag of weed. Like there are people who are doing 25 years for selling a nickel of weed. How is that fair to anybody? Not only that, but I learned this little fact in middle school, that the crack rock, the actual rock of crack cocaine, the brick itself, is a lesser charge than the powdered down substance of crack. And that's by design, because minorities are mainly found with the smaller substance, which makes no sense. If you have a full crack rock, you could do 10 years. But if I have a nickel of crack, of coke, I have to do 25 years to life.
Coke is less, crack is a lot.
Yeah.
Most Coke, most Black people have
that's what it is. Thank you so much, Mav. Yes, coke is less and crack is more, and we guys know you guys already know, so I don't even have to explain that to you. So for me to listen to this actual data and just sit down and think about all of this, it's just like, what are we gonna do? Now it's time for us to come up with a plan. And in the great words of Barack Obama, folks want to pop off, suggest a plan. What the fuck are we gonna do about this? Because for me, I feel like now that we know that, well, we don't know for a fact, but there's evidence pointing to the facts that privately owned prisons profit off of hip-hop music. One of the things I kind of just think about is what I just brought up to you guys, how labels are now actively signing real gangster rappers. They don't want studio gangsters no more. They want real life gangsters. And that's because at a certain point, I guess the young boys was like, yo, we don't want to listen to studio gangsters no more. I want to hear about a nigga who's really out there doing that shit. So at a certain point, it does come on to us, the consumer. For me, I think that hip hop just has to get to a point where both sides are being told, and that artists are not allowing, because the thing is, I had in here, actually, I'm going to touch on this. Too Short sat down with NPR's Louder Than a Riot, which is actually an amazing podcast going into depth about the history of the hip hop industry in a private prison system in general. So you guys definitely should check it out. But Too Short sat down with them, and we all know Too Short is the godfather of vulgar rap, of pimps and hoes and bitches and all of this shit. He is literally Mr. Misogynoir himself. And he sat down with them and said that the guy higher up at his label encouraged him to make more vulgar, explicit music to compete with his gangster rap counterparts like Snoop Dogg. He basically was like, yo, a guy sat him down and was like, basically, Snoop Dogg is doing your thing, but he's doing it better than you. So I think you should do an album that's even more vulgar, that's even more nasty and just And Too Short was like, okay, I'll do that. But if I do something like that, I also want to put out a positive album right after, like no cursing, no nothing, just vibes. And he said after he recorded the album, it did great, obviously. Blow the whistle. Doo, doo, doo. But anyway, the album did amazing. But every time he would ask, like, yo, when we gonna get this conscious project together? When we gonna do this positive project? It's not really the time for that. Gangsta rap is what's in. There was a active push from a industry who rap basically was the redheaded stepchild of music for a while, because rappers were not allowed to go to music video awards. They were not allowed to go to the awards. The Grammys, forget about it. When they added a rap category to the Grammys, they did not televise it on TV. So for an industry who actively tried to suppress rap, it's just kind of funny how pretty much within a year niggas is like, oh yes, rap is in, rap is it. Like, it's just like, and then the type of rap, y'all never ever have went this hard for conscious rap, for party rap, for just regular like fun loving, because there's a lot of different categories in raps, and that is a different conversation for another time. But in itself, for me, it's just so crazy how like all of this stuff just makes sense when you compile evidence with just what we know of the industry. It just makes a lot of sense. So to touch a little more on how these things connect now, even I feel like in the drill scene, like there's always this, like, for example, when King Von, R.I.P. to him, passed away, like, literally niggas was online like, yo, like, I can't wait for Lil Durk to kill Quando Rondo. Like, what? Like, what? And the people who are posting this are not people who look like me and you. They're little white kids in the suburbs whose daddies probably own these labels. And it's like, when you put that into retrospect, it's like, bro, where have we come as a culture that we don't peep game? Like, that we don't even see that this stuff is going on right now. Too Short actually said in the same sit down, like, yo, look at it. We call us like soon as rap in the South started getting popping, like we started hearing about the trap, like, yo, we trap niggas. We from the trap, bro. So to hear, like, he basically said, like, bro, if you were to say that in any civil rights meeting, like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Martin Luther King, but like, yo, we from the trap, like, niggas would get up and try to exorcise the demon out of you or some shit, cause like, what the fuck would you mean you from the trap? And for him to even take it that deep with the drill scene, like, we're actively manifesting for our young ones to be trapped in a lifestyle. Like, that's what the trap is. A repeat of the same lifestyle. You waking up and seeing the same niggas every day cook the same crack and serve the same fiends. Like, does that not sound like a trap? Like, does that not sound like a cycle you don't want to be trapped in? But we glorify it. Even I even heard people say shit like the comparison of how we call cars a whip and things like that. But just to generally look at how hip hop culture behind the scenes and in front of the scenes actively emulate slavery. Like black oppression. Like these things actively emulate. Like Future said, got a new whip, nigga, like I'm a slave master. How much clearer did niggas have to make it for you after that? That this is what, and the thing is, because we're all black and brown people and we're all a part of a diaspora and we all are interconnected to these experiences based off of the things we've seen and gone through, it is very easy to think that stuff like that is natural or things like that is just hard and it just is what it is because we black and we from the hood. But we do not have to accept this. We don't. We do not. Like, we can talk about our experiences and share them without necessarily glorifying the trenches. Like, bro, Lil Durk literally said in one of the songs, like, niggas asked him why he called the trenches the dungeon. And he was like, because the dungeon is the trenches. Like that's as real as it get, bro. And for me, it's just like, we got to get to a point where as consumers, we're getting smarter. And that's not to say gangster rap and drill rap has no place in the media or has no place in the mainstream or has no place in music, because it does. But what I think is when we get to a point where we are only basking in the negative attributes of our community, we start to lose sight of the real positivity in hip hop culture, in rap. And I honestly have not, being that I'm 21 years old, I honestly have not been in a hip hop generation that I have not been, let me not say generation, I have not been in a hip hop movement that isn't, that wasn't To Pimp a Butterfly, that was conscious, that was that big. Like, there hasn't been many big conscious movements in our generation, and that's by design. I don't believe that that's because all our generation wants to hear is glorification of gang violence. Because when you actually look at our generation and the rates of crime and gang violence, yes, crime is going down inherently. But mass incarceration is still an issue. And when we have young black men who are not in the streets still being penalized and thrown in jail based off the color of their skin, we have to have a conversation of what is being portrayed and what is being put into the media. Like, literally, I've been saying this since the first season of this show. Rolling Loud is the feds. Rolling Loud is the math. Have I not been saying that? Rolling Loud has been the feds for the longest. And while doing my research, I got kind of confirmation of that. New York City's first Rolling Loud, they sent letters out to 5 artists, Pop Smoke and Casanova being included on that, basically telling Rolling Loud that these niggas is high risk and we pulling up for them. Like, the NYPD said that to Rolling Loud, the organizer of that concert. And I guess because of all of the bad press from Rolling Loud Miami the year before with the NBA YoungBoy shooting, and then Lil Durk getting arrested that same weekend. He didn't get arrested at Rolling Loud, but he was arrested that same weekend. And a lot of drama just happened. They told them not to fucking come. But even that in itself shows, like, we even know that the hip hop police exists. Like, that used to be a rumor, but there are now ex-cops coming out saying that they were in a undercover sector of the New York City Police Department to police rap concerts because they felt like people coming to rap concerts were just inherently violent and gangster. And what's crazy is I can't speak to the 90s, but I could definitely speak to my generation. Most motherfuckers at concerts in this generation are not gangsters. And you want to know why? Because gangsters can't go to concerts, nigga. Gangsters can't go to shit like that. A nigga who is really out here doing some criminal, nefarious shit can't go to no concert. When you go to a concert, ain't nothing but bitches and fucking Asian and white kids who love hip hop. And if it is black men there, they're not gangbangers. They're just black and men. So the fact that the police just feel like a hip hop crowd is about to be outside, bro, hell fucking no. Especially in New York, motherfuckers go to a concert in New York is going to be fly. Like, yo, but this is what is if you don't know, if you're not a young person in this generation or just in another generation, like if you don't remember being young in the 90s, or if you didn't go to concerts in the 90s as a young person, or just have reminiscence of being youthful, you would not know these things. It is so easy for white people to sit there and assume based off of the color of our skin that we're just doing this, that, and the third. And it's like, no, this is not going on. Which is why, as the consumer, we have to take a stand and be like, yo, we want this, that, and the third. Because it comes to a point where that's who everyone has to answer to. Like, the power is with the people. And I feel like with social media, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in one community, or I'm into this or I'm doing that, it's so easy to be warped up into what you feel like you identify with. You forget that there is power in numbers. Like, niggas don't just get to do stuff like this. I don't like, bro. I talk about how, like, I never knew that, like, in this government, FBI agents go rogue every day and create subsectors of the FBI and go on their own missions and get their own perps. This happens. Look it up. Like, there are actual FBI documents against niggas like that. Like this. Like, just look it up. So if that can happen in the CIA, FBI, the highest form of government, what makes me think that can't happen in the regular NYPD? In a regular police department? Like, bro, we are not that far away from a time where police officers went home and put on their KKK outfit after they took their badge off. So it's not far-fetched that a secret meeting did happen where label executives who are also invested into private banks also decided that they also were going to pump Gangsta Rap into the forward. Because the thing is, like, I remember I watched an old MTV documentary about Gangsta Rap, and one of the prominent pastors at that time, Dionne Warwick and something Reverend Butts, I'm sorry that I forgot his name. I know Dionne Warwick though, because when I was younger, people always tell my mother, like, oh, you should like you should put on her videos for her, like your daughter has a very powerful vibe like her. So that's, used to be a little church girl, y'all, but that's besides the point. Oh shit, my live cut off. Okay, anyway, that's besides the point. in that video, the Reverend watched the video of Tupac saying, like, oh, I didn't have a father, so this is why I do what I do. This is why da-da-da. The only niggas I had to look up to was pimps and gangsters and drug dealers. And the Reverend looked up and was like, I'm pretty sure he had other people. He's like, I'm pretty sure he had other. Matter of fact, I know he had other people. And if he don't have other people, look at where you're at now. You're doing movies. You're doing this. And like, he basically like, I will have a conversation with Pac if people will point me in a direction and get in touch with him. So there has to come a point in time where not only the consumer, but the artist is taking accountability. So, I mean, guys, it's a lot for for y'all to think about and digest. Wow. Anyway, it's a lot of stuff for us to look at and digest. All of the information is most definitely out there. Like, this is not stuff that I'm pulling out of a hat. Like, these are things you guys can actively go look up, research. Like, all of these things are out there for us to know about, and I feel like the more people that know about it, the more we could do something about it. Because honestly, I don't have all the answers. Like, I look up all of these things and I present the information to you guys because I feel like it's valuable information. But I don't know what to do. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know what to do with this information. Who would even care about this information, which is why it's just important for all of us to just constantly be having a conversation because somebody knows. This was a very special episode of the Burnout Podcast. You guys can make sure you look out for my women empowerment event that is coming back this Saturday. It is going to be called the Fashion Connect. We are going to be doing a fashion industry panel, basically talking about the same things I talked about today, just in the fashion version. So make sure you guys are on the lookout for that. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, and subscribing on all the videos on the S.STREET Media channel, but especially this one because your comments and views go a long way. Make sure you guys are commenting your opinions. Let me know what you guys thought about this specific episode in the comments. And this was another episode of the Burnout Podcast at S.STREET Media. I'm your host, Rebecca Shelby, and we are out.